Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream. Welcome to CEO Interviews, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about what's going on at their companies. For those of you who are watching via video, glad to have you here. But remember, if you can't watch video, get us by podcast, Spotify, Apple, Google, your favorite podcast sites where you can listen to us on the road and wherever you may be where you don't have time to watch video. With us today, happy to have him back again, Marshall Gunter. He's CEO at Datametrex AI, trades on the TSXV Venture Exchange under the stock symbol DM. For our friends in the US, DTMXF, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under D4G. Now, those of you who are new to the story, and it's going to be a lot of you, Datametrex AI, is, as you can figure, is an artificial intelligence company that's focused on social media discovery and fake news detection. Might sound like a lot of lip service there, but their clients already include the Canadian federal government, the United States Air Force, and South Korean multinational conglomerate LOTTE, or LOTTE. That's about a $2.6 billion company. Last quarter, they announced $1.6 million in revenue. That was a record. And they just keep hitting out of the park with new contracts, new things going on, including participating in a NATO research task group where they presented in Paris, France. And last year, they secured another contract with the division of LOTTE for $1 million. And just recently, another $600,000 renewal contract. So the company is hitting it on all cylinders. Marshall, welcome back to the show.
Hey, glad to be back, George.
Hey, you're doing amazing things because, you know, you would think that social media monitoring would be just some kind of fancy, some kind of a fancy business plan that doesn't have a lot of meat to it. But you guys are hitting it out of the park. So let me ask you something. With the upcoming U.S. election, that's going to be a big one, considering what happened in 2016. How big is social media monitoring for foreign interference in elections going to be this year?
Well, it's going to be larger than ever. I mean, it's super important, and we're seeing that play out now within the space. But it's not just, okay, social media for an election. It's also all the sub-themes in the elections and stuff. And we saw that, we were deployed with the DRDC in Canada in 2019, and we saw it play out in the topics that influenced the election there. And you can see that research that we did with NATO. It's on datametrex.com. But in the US, it's already starting to play out. Like, it's already started. We are looking into today, like the coronavirus. So we're seeing, and this will be posted later on the website also, that even within, a topic like the coronavirus, there's already foreign actors trying to influence people.
Trying to create panic? Is that what they're trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Panic?
So make people panic, make sure there's wedge issues.
Right.
And getting people to just do the wrong thing. There's a lot of the research we've done around that. That'll be posted later today. But it's also playing out in, more, how do we say it, traditional issues, especially in the U.S. For instance, in an upcoming case that's going to influence the Roe versus Wade decision,
right,
in the United States, which is such a divisive issue.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, this research we are doing with Democracy Labs in the United States right now, and our first findings will be published later this week. But what we're seeing is, as this case goes and progresses to the Supreme Court of the United States, there's already foreign actors involved in the discussions online, and people are actually listening to this stuff, even though it is not relevant. And the only thing the foreign actors are doing is they're not trying to play one side or the other. They're just trying to drive a wedge. And it's working. Like, you've seen it continue from the 2016 U.S. election up till now, the political climate in the U.S. is extraordinarily divisive. And it's being fanned by these types of interventions by foreign actors.
And we know you've been hired. We know you've been, Datametrex has been hired by, governments to do a lot of work. So this example, for example, this case around this topic of Roe versus Wade, were you was Datametrex hired on specifically to do that research as well?
Yes, this is part of a contract we have with a group in the United States called Democracy Labs, and what they do is try to expose this just for the betterment of society in the U.S. And to educate people. So you see it play out now as people, retreat into their echo chambers, and without people like Democracy Labs, and you don't see the federal government in the United States trying to check this stuff. They're just kind of playing along at the moment. Now that's going to change, and there's a lot of interest in that. It's just not making headlines right now because of, I guess coronavirus at the moment.
Yep, that's Dom. And actually, this interview is a coronavirus-friendly interview, right? Because you're talking to us from your house because everyone's working virtually at Datametrex. Just ironically enough.
That is correct. We are trying to help help secure the neighborhoods.
And you're seeing disinformation on the coronavirus side as well?
Absolutely. No, it's already there, especially aimed inside the United States. We're even seeing people. The thing about this one is, the problem is that they've gotten very good at the disinformation. So a lot of bad medical information that's not correct is being parroted around the internet now with the same weight as correct medical information. There's one in particular we found is a case where I guess there's a shortage of hand sanitizer in the United States.
Yep, absolutely.
Right now.
Major problem.
And so there's these recipes out there stating that you can make this stuff out of vodka. And this was started from someplace in India. We tracked it all the way back to India. Now, why would India be tweeting about a coronavirus?
Yeah, why is that?
Infected, right? It doesn't make any sense. But if you do this and you actually get some of this stuff, like inhale it or drink it once it's been mixed with the chemicals or anything like that, it can make you extremely sick. And there's already been 16 people hospitalized because of it.
All right, so you're going to be, just as a side note, getting away from the business for a second, I'm assuming that's the kind of thing you're going to be publishing and will be picked up by the media, that you're picking up these fake coronavirus sanitized recipes, and that's actually making people sick. So that's unbelievable that you've been able to do all of this so far. Clearly, you're having great success with the likes of the Canadian federal government, the U.S. Air Force. Last time we spoke, the company was in the process of making further inroads into the U.S. market, especially with the government. So tell us, how is that going? Where are you at with your progress into the U.S. market?
So we've progressed quite a bit since the last time we spoke. The last time we spoke, we were heading in for what's called GEC. What this was a presentation that allows us to get on a preferred vendors list in the U.S. for most of their alphabet agencies. And so alphabet agencies, for people that don't know, are
right.
The Department of State, the CIA, the U.S. Air Force,
DOD, Department of Defense, all those kind of things, right?
Everybody that's got a nice acronym. So once we do that, we don't have to be vetted for every single sale, right? So we had to be vetted for our U.S. Air Force sales. And that vetting process is quite long. It's 6 to 12 months. But if we get pre-vetted for all these people, we can just sell, period. So it's a 3-stage process. We passed stage 1 with flying colors. We're on to stage 2. We are in the process of setting that up now, which is a technical evaluation. So we will be doing that within the next 2 to 6 weeks, depending on how quickly the other side moves. We just had those discussions last week about how to set that up. Our first demo is going to be next week, and so I expect it to conclude, like I said, 2 to 6 weeks. But because we passed the first piece, we've been put onto a disinformation platform that has been being put together by GEC for the alphabet agencies in the United States.
And I'm assuming they have an urgency about this because the election's coming up. So is it safe to assume you're getting fast tracked? Not that that guarantees you're going to get approved, but we don't want to tell that to anyone at home, but safe to assume they're kind of fast tracking you through all this?
I would assume so. It's moving very quickly. I cannot speak for them. I don't know what the normal process is because I've never done this one before. But it does appear to be moving rather rapidly. And the fact that they immediately put us onto that platform as one of the tool sets that's going to be, advertised within those communities tells me that somebody's interested. So, in addition to that, though, with the second round, though, we are going down shortly. I'm just waiting on the date we've been invited to the United States Air Force Cyber Command, and that'll be in Rome, New York. And I will be heading down there probably within the next couple of weeks. We're just waiting on a confirmation date. And specifically, they're putting together, an anti-disinformation task force to the tune of about $2 billion to start combating some of this stuff within the United States, because the military in the U.S. is taking this very seriously, as is NATO and all their partner countries.
Well, essentially, it's an attack on on democracy, right? It's an attack on the people in the governments. If you got foreign agents interfering in the election, so if it's going to fall on someone, it's going to fall on the military. $2 billion, not that all 2 billion might come to Datametrex, but if you're successful there, I'm assuming you're going to get a nice piece of that pie, and you've already proven that you guys can win these kind of things. So we'll look for how successful that will, or maybe you want to finish that point. You'll be down there in a couple of weeks. How long of a process is that going to be?
We'll be there for 2 days. I know that I don't know the attendee list, and they never tell us until we get there. And then it's just the way it rolls when you're dealing with the military, some of those agencies. But it's quite an extensive list, we've been told. There's going to be a lot of people to present to, therefore it's going to be at least 48 hours while we're down there.
What's really amazing, Marshall, it's really amazing, and I'm loving this, is the fact that, at the end of the day, Datametrex is a small cap Canadian company. And yet there's no concern, because sometimes you see this, right? Small cap companies are sometimes the hurdle they can't overcome, no matter how good they are, is their balance sheet, for example, and their income statement, that they're not a big conglomerate at the end of the day, right? But clearly this is not something that they're concerned with, which tells me, if I had to read between the lines, that the company's technology is just that good, that they're not concerned about those things, and they want your technology on their side. They want it in their repertoire.
Yeah, the tech is pretty solid, and some of the other things that we've done, I think, to open that up, like in the past year, is we've built the tech out to where it's completely scalable and portable, which is what it's allowed us to go into these markets. Like previous versions of this tech, specifically within our Nexaology suite of products, was not portable, which kept us from entering any foreign markets just due to data locality laws, right? The United States Air Force is not going to do a data project with data on Canadian soil. They're just not going to do it. And it's that simple, as is, some of the other countries that we operate in. And on that case, it's also scalable. Like, one of the things that these guys want is they don't want to have to put in tons of infrastructure in order to get something to work. And now with our tech, we can run stuff, down on a laptop. Like
Unbelievable.
The U.S. Air Force has a guy running it now in North Carolina on his own laptop in a secure environment. And then, he just comes to us for updates every now and then, but it works all the way from there to the large, giant installations that the Canadian government has here in secured facilities, 100 servers or what. I'm not even sure how many they're running right now, but it's quite a bit.
Let me ask a question. You're obviously having great success. So you're a known entity in Canada with the government. You're a known entity clearly with these invitations and the contracts you're winning with the U.S. government, the alphabets. Now you're being introduced to all the alphabet departments. Do you see? Are you having any success attracting the attention of other governments around the world? Because clearly this isn't a problem limited to Canada and the U.S. Are you having any success with other governments that also want this service?
So that's interesting you asked that, because actually we are getting some interest there. So as you mentioned earlier, we worked a lot with LOTTE in Korea over the past year, and we've just signed about a little over $1.5 million in renewals with them. In addition to that, the LOTTE, I'll get to the government in just a second, but LOTTE is a private corporation. We got put on a preferred vendor list for LOTTE. So LOTTE, don't quote me on this, but I think they have 72 subsidiary companies. I think that's right.
Well, let's put it this way: they're a massive conglomerate.
Yeah, they're huge.
So up or down fiber, they're massive.
So by getting on this list of being their preferred vendor, so when any of these subsidiaries come and say, we want, something that does X, or, in our case, we don't just work it with social media, we can work with any text. So like LOTTE uses it to monitor their internal email. So they identify, trends and things like that inside their email, make sure morale is good, people are happy, things of this nature. Which is the exact same thing that, say NATO is doing when they deploy during an exercise. For instance, like Trident Juncture or some of the other exercises we've been involved in, and they monitor social media and the geolocation around the exercise. They're making sure people aren't freaking out. Well, LOTTE is using this on their internal to do the same thing. But by getting on that list, when any of these subsidiaries ask, LOTTE will hand us to them and say, here, this is the tool you need. So that was a huge win for us, and we just got that in January.
And for everyone at home, the fact that LOTTE, by the way, for everyone at home who maybe wants to look at that, that's LOTTE. If you want to look them up on your own, they're pretty easy to find. LOTTE, South Korea. But what's really encouraging for people at home who don't know about the company just yet, because they're discovering, is that you've won renewals. It wasn't like you just had one contract and that's it, and the fact you've had renewals is a clear sign that, for lack of a better term, they're loving your technology.
Yeah, and it's starting to filter out too. So we've had discussions, these are preliminary, so there's nothing there just yet, but we've had a lot of discussions with the South Korean military. Those are ongoing. The sales cycles on those would be pretty long, but they're talking to us. And in addition to that, we were contacted this month by the Vietnamese government. So they've reached out to us through a corporation called Miraway in Vietnam to do some work and installation work with their state police forces. And those discussions are ongoing right now also. So we're starting to see interest globally now, which is, a good thing.
This is every time I give you a question, give me an answer. It just sounds like your universe is growing and growing. And everyone at home knows I am a massive believer in artificial intelligence, that it's going to change everything in the next 10 years. And though it's too early to say anything, and there's, we can't sit here and make projections, things like that. Reading between the lines again, the success at various levels of government, being invited to these massive, think tanks for putting ideas together and solving real problems, having other governments reach out to you. That tells me, if I had to say something, that it's not a case of success. That question's already being answered. It's only a case of degree, and who knows where you're going to be in the next 6 to 12 months, let alone the next 3 to 5 years. But you are a technology company, and so the great thing about technology is you can scale really quickly, but you can also run into a lot of competition. So what is Datametrex doing about expanding its offering?
Well, currently, right now, one of the big problems you have with tech like ours is approachability. And what do I mean by that? It's extraordinarily powerful software. There's no getting around that. But it also means that it's extraordinarily difficult to use in certain cases. All right. And this is not an issue for, say, the U.S. government or a large corporation like LOTTE, or the defense research in Canada or Canadian Armed Forces. They have people on staff with the type of training needed to utilize the software that we produce and to make the data that comes out of it actionable, because it's no good if it's not actionable data, right? And previously, in the past, for corporations or businesses that wanted to utilize our software and did not have that expertise, we would provide it for them. All right.
And would that be more like small, medium businesses, or would that also be large enterprises that just didn't happen to have the expertise to be able to manage an AI system?
Yeah, it's both. For instance, a lot of our work with Health Canada is done that way, because Health Canada doesn't have data analysts internally who know how to run neural network software. So we would produce the reports and things like that for them. Well, we're changing that, and that's going to go out to one of our government clients next month. And what we've done as part of some of these government contracts is taken our software and given it the ability to produce those reports, like 90% of the reports, automatically. So it pulls relevant information out for you. It pulls out all the backing information, puts it into a document. In this case, it go out through like a Microsoft Word format and PDF and HTML, so they can be co-edited with, if you guys want to edit together, much like Google Docs. And it's 90% done. And all you've got to do is a few bits of write-up.
How about the front end about implementing it? So does Health Canada, for example, that example you just used, do they still have to have someone who can actually implement the AI and execute it, or are you handling that part as well?
Well, they have to tell the system what they're interested in examining. The system can't just divine that you want to look at, say, for instance, the coronavirus, right?
Of course.
You have to tell it, this is what I'm looking for, and any parameters around that. If you're in one specific geolocation, or just different time frames, all those type parameters are still entered by the user, but those hurdles are easy. People are used to doing it. If you can run a spreadsheet, you can do this. This is not an issue.
Okay, I may end up using it at the end of the day, just to find out who's saying bad stuff about Agoracom on Twitter, because God knows we've got some enemies there. We ban them from Agoracom for not letting them carry out their nonsense. So that maybe I'll end up using the software.
Yeah, you could do that, but this is going to our first. Defense research is going to get a hold of this next month, and it'll go through a trial period with them as we get a lot of feedback with them. They're extraordinarily interested in it also because, despite the fact that they do have the data analysts, this will cut down, say, report times from hours to minutes.
Yeah,
that's of super interest to them. And in addition, this work has opened up. Well, it won't just open up the SMB market like you were talking about. It will allow us to approach them and approach corporate clients like, say, Canada, Air Canada, or CNN, or people like that who also don't have this type of expertise on board and aren't going to invest in it. So it'll open up our ability to approach them, but it also opens up the ability to work in environments within, say, the public sector that are more time sensitive, which is something I was going to get to later, but I'll go ahead and talk about it now.
Yeah, go. What is it?
We're in the middle of talks with Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is tasked with building a different control system inside naval warships. And the ability to react quickly to this type of information is something they're interested in. And so we've had 2 meetings with them now about this because of this rapid analytical generation system that I'm talking about now. And they're super interested in it. Now, I don't know where this is going to go yet, but it does open the door to those type of environments. So when information is being measured, not in days and weeks, but in minutes, we now can approach that, and we will have the tool set to do it.
Yeah, and I'm going to say it again. it's also third-party validation when your technology is being used at that level of defense that you've already got it being used at, and being evaluated by the likes of Lockheed Martin in the aerospace, because these are companies that just don't mess around at the end of the day. If you're not tier one, top breed technology, you're just not going to get their interest. So to me, I'm just reading between the lines again, and I love that, what I'm hearing about that. Even if you don't get this particular contract, you may or may not. It just tells me that you're going to get a lot of calls going forward from all sorts of big entities. So if that's how you're expanding your offering and make it even easier for everyone to get their results in minutes, and that's just a stroke of genius. Going back, let me ask you one question. You had there was the IDEAS project. I'm going to read this off: the Innovation for Defense Excellence and Security. And that was something you talked about late last year. What's progress in that looking like? What's the status of that? Because that was that was for the DRDC, fake news filters, so on and so forth. How's that looking? How's that progressing?
Well, it's going very well. We're still in the middle of it for this go round, but they have changed the program with regards to how it is being managed and rolled out. So the deployment of that technology we're in the second quarter of a 4-quarter deployment phase with them, and everything's going just perfect. We're actually about 3 weeks ahead of time right now. But what it has changed is the management of the funding. So originally IDEAS was a ramping system. And the part we were on now, which was part 3, was a little like about 1.2 million-ish. And then that would expand to 5 million and then 10 million, et cetera. That was their original plan.
Okay.
That's scrapped. So they've changed that. What they've done is combined it into a much larger structure moving into the next federal budgets. And so what the next portions of this is not going to be called IDEAS, but it is the follow-on to that program. They don't have a name for it yet, but it is a $40 million offering. And what they've asked us to do—
from 5 million to 40 million.
Yeah, it's gone up. Now,
that's saying something.
Yeah, this presents a challenge for us, though, and I'll tell you what we're doing about it. As a small company right now, we could not service the $40 million contract on our own. It's too much. And we couldn't ramp fast enough to do it effectively. So they've asked us to co-bid with another company that was in the IDEAS program with us, which is the MDA Aerospace. MDA is
big company.
A big company.
Yeah.
They're owned by Maxar, I want to say, out of Colorado. But they are one of Canada's largest aerospace companies. They're the company that built Canadarm2. They're also on the hook for parts of the new space station that's going up the Lunar Gateway.
That's a serious partner. That's a serious partner, Marshall.
So right now we are partnered with them, and we are building our offering with them now for this $40 million co-bid, and that will be submitted. I think it's going in at the end of this month. If it's not, it's the 1st of April. I have to go look. And then, based on those dates, and I can't predict what the government does, but based on past projections, we'd know something by mid to late summer.
And again, I just love the fact that you have a major government entity that needs something, and now you have another major aerospace partner that actually wants to work with you on it. Again, you're piling up.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're just piling up that list of credibility. There's
what
no denying it.
Yeah, hopefully it'll open up some more doors. Like we just in the last meeting there, and this is just an off the cuff comment, but another guy from another department saw what we were doing and saw what the engine could do, and his responsibility within MDA is documentation. And he's sent me 2 emails already because he said when they built the ISS, the International Space Station, the joke was that they didn't need a rocket to get up there. They could just pile up the documentation and climb it. He's like, I have no way to manage this stuff. So anyway, I'm going to go have coffee with him and see if we can help him.
Hey, so last question. That amazing overview of what's going on at the company. And hats off to you and the team, everybody, Jeff Stevens, everybody there. You guys are, I've had over 300 clients, thousands of companies I've looked at. Every day I'm looking for the next great technology company every day. It's not easy to find, right? Because they don't pop up every day, but you guys are there, man. I got to admit, you're right there, right? So I can't wait to see the next 12 months. But what I want to ask you as a last question for everyone at home is, we now starting to see how big of a role AI monitoring is playing in the space, and it's 2020. And everyone, like I said at the outset, people know how bullish I am on the future of artificial intelligence. Where do you see your space 5 years from now? And I'm not asking for specific projections and numbers and things like that, but is this really the very, very beginning? And it's just going to mushroom. Like, what does it look like for you in the next 5 years? Without me putting words in your mouth.
Well, it's going to explode. You're seeing the very beginnings of this now, but no, you're seeing the beginnings of it in social media because that's where the most data is being produced at the moment. And even like just this week, within the past week, you're seeing like companies like Twitter move on this with like Donald Trump's campaign released an ad and about Joe Biden that Twitter deemed false or misleading, and then they labeled it. But with all this type of stuff going on and the ability of people to produce more and more of this, it's just going to expand. There's no getting around it. And the human mind, and there's just not enough people to keep up. It's that simple.
No,
right?
No way.
We can't do it. We cannot do it. You cannot sit around and have people read millions of tweets and Facebook posts and all this and try to make judgment calls.
Well, you're competing against bots, right? You can't read as fast as a bot can. A bot can post 500 messages in, I don't know, a minute. That's just not humanly possible to be able to keep up with that.
But it's going to come on both sides of it, though. And so it's going to be, AI will be involved in producing this type of information, and AI will be involved in countering this type of information and identifying it. But it's going to move beyond the space that say Nexaology works in now. And you're just seeing this in academia, but in the next 5 years, you're going to see this type of production and consumption of AI even moving out to, say, books, movie scripts.
It's happening at law firms. Sorry to interject. It's happening. There are AI law firms now where the AI scans your fact scenario. George borrowed money from Marshall on January 1st. George didn't pay Marshall back on March the 30th. What's the law? I'm using but I'm talking about for very complicated litigation. I now know of firms right here in Canada, right here in Toronto, where the AI scans the fact scenario and then goes out and puts the law together, puts the case law together, and instantly tells you, based on this and this and this, George, there's a 99% chance you're going to lose this. You owe, and this is what's going to happen. Marshall's not only going to win the litigation, but he's going to get costs and he's going to get interest. So you may as well settle as fast as you can. Boom, all done instantly on the balance of probability. So yeah, it's going everywhere.
Yeah, I guarantee you, and it'll be in everything and permeate everything that we use.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I feel fortunate. Your shareholders should feel fortunate. Everyone watching and listening should feel fortunate that they're able to discover Datametrex, today in its current form. And for everyone at home, look, you've watched or if you've been listening by podcast, you've heard what Marshall's had to say. And it's up to you now to do your due diligence, right? Go to Agoracom, read the profile, watch the first interview we did with Marshall and Jeffrey Stevens, right? Re-watch, re-listen to this one. Then use the link on the forum, get out to the company's website, do more due diligence. And finally, you're always going to have questions. Come back into the forum where that the team have been verified. So if you want to ask questions, that's actual Datametrex executives that are answering to round out your due diligence. But do it because you know how I feel about artificial intelligence. It can't be stopped. And when you have a company like Datametrex that's executing great third-party validation with federal governments, defense, aerospace, It means they've got something. How big will it be? We don't know. Could it fail tomorrow because some, George starts his artificial intelligence monitoring company out of his garage and beats the company, next year? That's possible too. But you've got Datametrex. We know you've got them on the table right now, and it's just a fantastic story. Marshall, congratulations to you, your team, and thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, George. It's always a pleasure.
You've been watching, listen to Marshall Gunter, CEO of Datametrex, trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol DM. For our friends in the US, on the OTC under DTMXF, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under D4G. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a fantastic day. I hope you've discovered your next great small cap company. See you next time.